What's up, Penn Staters, and welcome to the Football Letter Podcast. This week, we welcome Steve Williams, who from 2012 to 2015 served as an offensive and defensive assistant here at Penn State, as well as an assistant strength and conditioning coach for the Nittany Lions. During his time at Happy Valley, Steven earned his master's degree in educational leadership. Steve has got extensive coaching experience all across college football. He's also spent time in the NFL. Currently, Steve is the current assistant head coach at his alma mater, Harvard, where he was a three-time letter winner and where he earned first-team All-American honors from the American Football Coaches Association. It's also worth noting that Steve has helped lead Harvard to the last two Ivy League Conference championships. Steve, we are thrilled to welcome you to the Football Letter Podcast. How are you doing today, sir?
Oh, John, thanks for having me. I'm blessed. I'm blessed to be here, man. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. So you joined Penn State from South Carolina. I was wondering if you could maybe talk with our audience about how did that move unfold for you, and what about the Nittany Lions program stood out to you?
Yeah, absolutely. So while at South Carolina, I was a graduate assistant in strength and conditioning under Craig Fitzgerald, and or Fit Dog, as a lot of people know him, who's now the head of strength and conditioning at Boston College. He happened to be my strength coach in college at Harvard, and he knew I wanted to get into coaching, so he brought me to South Carolina. And then I was there with him for a year. And then when Coach O'Brien got the job at Penn State, he brought Coach Fitzgerald on, and Coach Fitz was gracious enough to bring me along. And it's Penn State, right? Like, you talk about the world of college football, there's not too many names that ring that caliber of bell. And so it was a no-brainer to join them, in Happy Valley. And, one of the best decisions I've ever made in regard to my coaching career, honestly.
All right. We want to unpack your time at Happy Valley, but you did bring up Craig Fitzgerald. Fans will remember him in Happy Valley working with Coach O'Brien. I think Fitzgerald he'd come out onto the field with no shirt on in freezing temperatures. How intense was that guy?
He is the epitome of a strength coach. And as far as I'm concerned, I know they have, Coach Losi there now, and they had Big Deej, who was Coach Fitz's mentor. But maybe I'm biased, but Craig Fitzgerald is the best to ever do it. Intense is probably the first word you think of when it comes to him. He is, passionate, intense about his profession, about his players, about football. He played at Maryland and got into the business right away, and he just climbed the ladder. Now a master strength conditioning, and he has a standard, and that is that as him as a strength coach, there's always short sleeves and shorts, and no matter what the elements may present, because we're not going to show the opponent any signs of any type of crack in our mental fortitude. That was the Fit Dog way, and his staff tried to embody it. I cannot say I did for sure. His players definitely tried to as well.
Your time in Happy Valley, and you already had a lot of experience by the time you got to Penn State. How did your time at Penn State shape you as a coach? Maybe were there a couple lessons that you learned that you picked up on during your time here?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I was fortunate to work for, Coach O'Brien for 2 years and his staff, and then obviously one with Coach Franklin. And in their own different ways, they're two of the best to ever do it, as far as I'm concerned. And when you're around great coaches, coaches of their caliber, you can't help but to soak up the knowledge, the wisdom that they have, just seeing them, again, in their different ways of how to do things at the ultimate level, right? They're two of the best at the college level, and then obviously Coach O'Brien's professional level. And you think football, you think coaching, and you get around people who are great like they are, and you realize, man, I don't know anything, and you get to pick tidbits, pieces, lessons, whether it's explicitly told to you, whether it's just something that you get through osmosis, right, from them. And it made me obviously re-edified my love for coaching, and it showed me there's a right way and a wrong way to do things, and they always do things the right way, and that's just how I've tried to carry myself throughout the profession since being able to work with them in my time there.
During your time at Penn State, you earned your master's degree in educational leadership. I imagine that there's a lot of overlap between educational leadership and coaching football.
Yeah.
How do those two worlds kind of intersect for you?
Right. Well, first, appreciate Coach O'Brien for ensuring that his graduate assistants went to class, because, you think you just want to coach ball, but having that master's is, life changing. I'm truly glad that I have it, especially from, an institution the caliber of Penn State. One and two, there's so many lessons I learned in the classroom that you carry over to football. Because I think if you ask any coach, the best coaches are teachers. I mean, that's what we're doing. We're teaching young men the game of football. We're teaching young men the game of life by way of the game of football. And I was able to take what I learned from my teachers in the classroom, the professors, to carry over the players, and it just helped me improve on a regular basis. Whether it's something as simple as just learning how to coach different individuals, right? You can't coach every player the same, and the same thing with teaching. You can't teach every kid the same. And being able to learn that lesson in the classroom, letting me apply it on the field, just helped me better myself as a professional.
That holistic approach to, whether you're playing, whether you're coaching, into the student athlete experience, how much does that resonate with you on a personal level?
Tremendously, right? Because I played at Harvard, where obviously academics are at the forefront, and we're a non-scholarship program. So, if you choose to play at Harvard, and most players have scholarship opportunities, but still decide to go there, you do want the education, and you truly love ball, right? And the intersection of those two, like in the holistic approach, I adopted as a player, and now I've adopted as a coach, and it allows you to reach every individual that you work with. Because again, like I talked about, you can't coach everybody. Everybody's a different approach. There's a different trigger, a different button that helps that kid in that moment. And we all love college ball, and especially a place like Penn State. There's NFL players that every year you're always going to have them, but that's still not the majority of players. The majority of players are in it because they love the game. They're playing college football, and they're going to do something else, right, outside of playing football when they're finished. And my experience, as a student athlete, and then educational wise, as undergrad and graduate, allows me to approach really those players who aren't going to NFL, or who aren't playing football past that, who may, like me, want to be a coach, who might want to get an education, business, law, whatever it is. And that holistic approach allows you, again, to reach everyone in all that you do.
So I'm going to ask you to brag about yourself a little bit, if you're comfortable with that. You excelled as a defensive back, as a player at Harvard, where earning All-American honors. You set the school record for the most interceptions in a season in 2007. What was your mentality as a player, as a defensive back, that you think allowed you to have that type of success?
Right. One, I learned this later in my career, was the preparation, right, of really studying your opponent, knowing your playbook, knowing your defense inside and out. But I relied a lot on instincts, and when I stepped on the field, I was the best. Whether I was or wasn't the case. That was my mindset, and I knew that at some point during the game, I was going to make a play that was going to help our team. And I loved making plays. I loved getting my hands on the football. I was naturally a wide receiver. I was a wide receiver in Texas, San Antonio, through high school, and that's what I thought I wanted to be. And some coaches, another name who might, Penn Staters might know, John Butler, who recruited me to Harvard, who I was with at South Carolina and Penn State. They had the right idea of switching me to defensive back, and me to take almost an offensive mindset that the ball's in the air, the ball's mine, to playing corner. Led to a lot of success for myself and the defense and the team. I love competing in whatever I do. Jim Caldwell, who I worked for in Detroit, said, as long as we're keeping score, I'm trying to win. And anybody around Penn State, also knows James Franklin, his core value number 3, man, compete in everything you do. And before I had words to put to it, that was just the mindset I had. I love competing in whatever it is, summer vacation, me and my son are going to play Nintendo Switch Sports here probably later this afternoon, and I'm trying to win. and that's just always been in me. The ball's in the air, I want to make a play. If we're keeping score, I'm trying to win. And that was my way of helping the team and going to compete, is getting my hands on the football.
That competitive mindset and attitude, is that one of the things that maybe you remember the most about, working with James Franklin that one year? Because he's always talking about that.
He's absolutely, when you play for Coach Franklin, when you work for Coach Franklin, you're going to know the core values. And number 3, right, compete in everything you do. That one stuck out to me. And he's ultra competitive in everything. And he embodies that. Therefore, the program and the players embody that. And the success is, undeniable, right? Like, I mean, the amount of wins he racks up year after year after year in the toughest division of toughest conference of college football is unparalleled. And I think it starts a lot with that, being competitive. And there's a lot of life lessons that you learn from football. There's a lot of great things about being a student athlete and major college football and whatnot. But at the end of the day, you do have to win. Right? A lot of our job, the majority of our job is predicated on that. And he understood that, and he made sure his coaches, his staff, and his players understood that. And I think the proof's in the pudding.
Yeah, absolutely. Continuing about your time with the Nittany Lions, I was wondering if you could share with the audience. I think most folks have an idea of, an assistant coach or a strength and conditioning coach. On game day, what were you doing? Because it feels like so much of your work goes on behind the scenes. I'm just wondering if you can share with fans, like, what was a typical game day like for you? What were you focusing on?
Oh, wow. So for Coach O'Brien and actually Coach Franklin, I signaled on game day, which the NFL and the quarterback and the I think college is about to start to adopt it. Well, the NFL, you radio down right to the quarterback's ear and tell them to play. Well, we didn't have that capability. So I was Coach O'Brien's signaler, to Matt McGloin, the Christian Hackenberg, right, getting the call in and whatnot, which is a stressful job because Coach, OB, one of the best offensive minds and play callers that the sport has known, has what he wants, and now is radioing it to me. And I have to make sure that is signaled in properly to the offense. And I think I had a pretty good hit rate of being accurate. I know I'll never forget. I might have messed one up in Minnesota on the road and it resulted in a bad play. And, you got to wear that. The quarterback's confused, the player's confused, and coach knows what he called. And, hey, all you can do is it's not even the time to apologize. You just kind of got to wear that. So it was a high stress job, but it was an important job. It was an exciting job because you're obviously constantly locked into the game. But now I'm listening to what the coach says, what Coach O'Brien says. I'm getting into the player. Oh, 1 second. My son's here. Jack. Yes. Okay. Thank you. Go ahead.
That's okay. You can say hi.
Hey, Jack, come here. You say hi.
Hi.
It's my oldest, Jackson.
Buddy? Jackson? Hey, what's going on, buddy?
How you doing?
Good.
What are you watching?
Tiny Chef.
Tiny Chef. So Jack is going into first grade. So he's on summer break right now. And he found something he had to bring to me right away. Thank you. I appreciate it. Go ahead. I'll see you in a bit. So, signaling kept you locked in for sure, right? Because you can't mess that up. And it's exciting, right? You're the conduit between the brain trust and the players. And then I switched to defense for Coach Franklin's staff, and then when Coach Shoup was the defensive coordinator calling we switch up the center between myself and Coach Pryor, Coach Spencer, and so it was kind of the same thing, just on the other side, which is, again, you love having a role like that. You're on the field. There's no better feeling than being like on the field at Beaver Stadium on a Saturday. Like I wish everybody could experience it. It's one thing to be in the crowd. It's another thing to be down there at that level. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's a perfect segue, Steve, for my next question. And we just have a couple more. We want to be respectful of your time and spend time with your family.
I appreciate it.
What is it like, or what do you remember the most about being on the field at Beaver Stadium? How special was that moment? Knowing that you've got such ravenous alumni and fan support.
It is. There are very few places that can claim to have the college football environment atmosphere that Penn State does. It's electric. You truly can feel the crowd noise, right? It reverberates in you. The stadium moving, the ground, you can feel it. My greatest game I've been a part of has to be, 4 overtimes at home versus Michigan. And I'm honestly, you couldn't hear, like Coach O'Brien be saying next week, try to get the call, and you couldn't hear anything. The moments, right? Like Allen Robinson's catch right there on the 1, Hack making a great throw, him making a great catch, Billy Belton walking off that touchdown. Like, you truly feel the crowd. It's unbelievable. Being a part of a whiteout, a night game, there's nothing better, right? It's true that when people say a crowd is alive, or Texas A&M as their 12th man, things like that. It's it's an undeniable advantage. It's those are feelings and moments I'll never forget and let go of.
Do you keep in touch with any of those guys? I know life takes you in different directions. Have you
Yeah.
kept in touch? Yeah.
Oh yeah, players and coaches. So I left Penn State and I was coaching the Detroit Lions, and a lot of those guys at that time again were playing in the NFL. So I'd see A-Rob, Adrian Amos, Donovan Smith, right? I talked to Deion Barnes now, who's coaching at Penn State. The Super Six were great, great guys. That whole crew, Billy Belton, who's arguably the best coach in New Jersey high school football right now. The most unheralded, but one of the best players that people don't talk about at Penn State, Kyle Carter, right? So many guys I came across, the Mounties, Gerald Hodges, it's like who were before that time, Jesse James, like seeing all these guys live out their dream that's why you coach, right? Like to help young men achieve those things. So, got to see them there. And then obviously with social media, you get to stay in touch. So that guys' numbers you check in on as they're growing up and, getting married, having kids and having their lives. And, it's just truly special. And then the coaches as well, you all splinter off and do different things. And any chance I get back in that area or where Penn State's at, if I'm nearby, always pop in to see them. Whether it's Coach Franklin, whether it's Coach Huff down in Southern Miss, Coach Pryor Tech, the Galts, when Marshall and one's, retired now. There's so many guys. Coach Fitz, obviously, Coach Butler's down in Nebraska, Coach O'Brien's around the corner. Will Lawlins with him as his OC. Like it was a special group of men I worked with and young men got to coach across the two staffs. And, of course, any chance you get to reconnect and keep up with those guys and tap in, touch base, you do.
You made me think of a question about, relationships and coaching. How important are relationships, one for you, and just how, you're spending so much time with people. How important is it to develop relationships that will lead to success?
It's the utmost importance, right? To me personally, and for your success, right? The best coaches, everybody sees all the bluster on the field or on TV, the guys yelling and screaming. You see players and people like, how could you not react to somebody yelling at you or screaming at you or talking like that? Well, you can't react because nobody else sees what goes on behind the scenes. All that led up to that. The fact that coach, the best coaches who are getting on a player that way, who are trying to get the best out of the player, have built a relationship with them. They have shown that they love them, right? I talked about Coach Fitz. Craig Fitzgerald, intense is putting it mildly, but if you ask anybody who's ever worked or played for him, you know how much Fit Dog loves you. So if he's getting on you, one, you're probably in the wrong. Two, he's doing it from a place of love and trying to get the best out of you. It's the same thing with the football coaches, right? Like these are built-in relationships that allow you to understand that when we're in the thick of things, right? We're down in the third quarter on Saturday. That if we're having a back and forth or the coach is getting on you between either, coach to player or coach to coach or whatever it might be, player to player, right? And those things, like it's not personal. It's intense because, hey, man, I love you. I need you in this moment. We're better than this. I'm better than this. My fault. I messed this up or you messed this up. You got to help me out, whatever it might be. And you can do that and have those moments, and the best teams do, because they built that culture of love and trust and camaraderie, starting, like you said, in training camp, in winter workouts. It doesn't just show up on Saturday. That is all built. And you can't fake that, right? It's real. I tell people all the time, college-age kids have the greatest BS meter that you'll ever find. They can tell when you're being real. They can tell when you're being genuine. And if you are real and genuine with them, then, they'll allow you to coach them.
So we'll wrap up, Steve, with this question. You're heading into the season with Harvard, looking for the team's third straight Ivy League conference championship. What's your approach in terms of how to get the best out of your players, and what do you enjoy the most about coaching at Harvard?
Right, getting the most out of them is kind of what we just talked about, building the relationships, right? Like I said, you saw my son. That's my oldest of three. My other two are at school right now. And you kind of hit the nail on the head. Like I spend so much time with other people's children, right? That you grow to love them as I do my own. And spending the time now in the summer, just going over, installs and playbook and things like that is awesome, but checking in on them, seeing how their breaks going, seeing how their workouts going, seeing how their family's doing, how their girlfriend's doing, how classes are doing, how their job's going, building those relationships, them knowing that you care, right? That allows us to, when the times get tough, when it's hot and it's the, third week of camp and everybody's tired of each other, you have this to rely on and build on. So my approach is always going to be relationship based. You know, People talk about types of coaches, transformational and transactional. I had transformational coaches in my life, men that I still keep in touch with to this day because of the relationships we built. And I want to be that for my current players, right? I can teach you X's and O's, but as long as the guys know I love them, I care about them, I'm here for them for whatever they might be going through, whatever they might need. I'll rely on that when it's November and we're trying to secure an Ivy League championship and a playoff berth, because they know that, we're in the fire together, right? And we've put this time in and we've built it. And so as hard as I coach them, that's as hard as they're going to play, because it's a two-way street. And I think if you do that and I continue to do that, then we'll have success. And at the end of the day, if you do fall short of your on the field goals, man, championships are awesome and people remember them and talk about them, but that's not the most important part of the job to me. The most important part of the job is, like I talked about the guys at Penn State, when you see them living their dreams, you see them with their families, and you get to stay in touch, and you get to see people grow together, right? Because as they get older, I get older, and we keep kind of this parallel street where we go from one point, especially now at Harvard, where these kids will be alumni of mine. We're part of this brotherhood. So I go from a coach now to, we can be friends and we can be part of each other's lives, because those are the aspects that are or truly be long lasting, right? Guys lose rings, trophies break, but those bonds, those relationships are forever, in my opinion, if you do this thing the right way.
Education, leadership, lifelong relationships. Steve, this was such an enjoyable conversation. We got to have you back next year if that's okay with you.
I appreciate anytime, man. Like I said, I love Harvard to death. It's the greatest, institution in the world. But Penn State is right there with me. I always have a place in my heart.
Well, hey, personally, professionally, wishing you and your family all the best, and certainly wishing Harvard well as you guys go for your third straight league championship. So thanks again, Steve. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. You have a good one.
All right, you too, Steve. Thanks.